How has smell and olfaction played a role in game design throughout history? We kind of briefly talked about this before, but maybe a few more examples.
So what's really interesting with that question is obviously most people haven't played a smell game or a game where there's any smell component. So there's not a lot of examples out there. I wouldn't say it's been incredibly influential. I think also a lot of games are completely fine if they don't have a smell component. I don't think many people I think have a perfectly good and feel they have a perfectly complete game and play experience without a special smell designed into it per se. But one thing that was really helpful for me was to look at, like, in a broader way, like how has smell been present in play, how has smell been present in toys, and how has smell been present in gaming environments of different kinds, whether designed into the environment or not designed into the environment. And so I really like to keep that really broad because, a game is a kind of a form, but people play all the time. And so there's lots of different ways of I like to expand that question quite a bit. But I do think that thinking about smell, it becomes a really interesting way of getting into the question of the embodied aspect of games and play, because it's really so deeply human, both to play and also to be responding to fragrance and scent. And so there's the really fun examples of smell games are like the ones like those old campy sex farces, like Leather Goddesses of Phobos, which is a text-based adventure game from the 1980s, which came with a scratch and sniff card, or Leisure Suit Larry 7, which also came with a scratch and sniff card. Scratch and sniff is great. Again, Jazz Brooks has done quite a bit of work in the area of scratch and sniff, and it's a great simple technology. Anyone can go out and go on YouTube and learn how to do it in just minutes. So it's a very accessible way of sort of integrating scent into interactive environments or all sorts of other physical environments. So I think that's what I've been looking at mostly, by trying to keep a broad, sort of open way of looking at scent in relationships to game and play over the centuries. But also to look at, not to get too tied up with technologies. I really also like to look really broadly at, how can we do things in a lo-fi way? How can we do things in a more accessible way? So I think that's also how making scent accessible to people in playful environments, that's a way forward. And I think that's a very exciting way forward.
And are there any olfactory game designs that are available today? I know of the new, I think the newest, the Xbox controller that has a little scent cartridge in it, so you can smell as you play. I don't know what games these go with actually.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of devices designed for consoles, to like a console peripheral that's usually cartridge based, and you have some kind of cartridge that would work for a particular kind of game genre or a specific game. Some of these have been proposed at the Consumer Electronics Show, and then they never go anywhere. So there was Game Skunk, and then there's the Feel Real VR headset, and there's a whole series of technologies that, again, haven't gained traction. That's not to say they're failures, because I still think that we can learn something from that. But I think that and so you mentioned also, like, building into systems is really great. And there's certain companies, I think, like Sony, that are really genuinely interested in scent and smell for a wide range of applications that will be able to do eventually for smell, like what they originally did for the Walkman, which is to think about the challenges of miniaturization, to think about the challenge, and companies that have a lot of media content also. So I think these companies could do great stuff, but I also expect, like, a lot of really good work to be done by artists and in research labs and non-specifically commercial spaces to help find the way forward for what kind of scent experiences we could have in relation to to playful and playable media.
You just said the challenges of miniaturization. I know what that
Yeah.
means or can get an idea, but for our audience, can you explain what that means and what are the challenges of miniaturization for smell?
It's a real problem for smells. When we're working in the space of designing with scent, and especially in sort of digital and interactive environments, one of the main things that's different from scent and light is that there's no RGB, no basic primitives for smell that we can use to generate millions of different smells. And so normally when we want to represent something, a smell in a digital interactive environment, we have to have a sample, right? A physical sample of that material. So that means that we have to have a reservoir of that material physically present with us for every scent we want to represent. So we really can't, it's really hard to blend two things together and get something really meaningful, for example, that really expands beyond just two scents. So that's the problem of miniaturization. We're in the physical world. I mean, just imagine like if every color on your laptop display, if for every color you had to have a little sample of pigment to make that, I mean,
Yeah.
you'd either have a million samples or you'd have the simplest display possible. So with scent, we have that challenge. Like, how do we deal with this sample of physical material? How do we integrate that into a device that we can wear, that we can carry, or that we can put onto a controller, right? So if you're talking about like, having a new game controller that has scent reservoirs on it, you can't really have more than, I don't know, 6, 8, right? So, and those are individual scents. So that's the problem of miniaturization. So that means we have to choose really carefully, like what scents are going to be represented. How do we get people to replace them when they're exhausted, which is like the inkjet problem,
Yeah.
inkjet color problem. So the whole series of like concerns that you have once you deal with, we're in the material world and we always have to have that sample. So those are some of the design challenges.